and you're driving in your car, you're just driving around, and then you drive into the like you're driving, and then your car hits the tree. Did the tree move into you, or did you move into the tree? What actually moved in that scenario in reality? It's a brain buster right there. You got to think about that one.
No,
It's
it's really
deep.
simple. Either
It's deep.
he's deciding to act like he didn't hear you, or he knows his answer is going to be laughed at.
It's either going to be laughed at or be wrong, according to PhD.
Well, you guys just hate reference frames.
I
Well,
like
yeah,
reference frames.
you can
The
straw
only
man it
reference
like you
frame
hate
I
reference
care about
frames.
is the lab frame.
That's
The
all right.
lab
The lab
frames,
frame.
right?
Yep.
Well, if you took that to an insurance company and you started arguing reference frames, I mean, what do you reckon they're going to do?
You sure could. Yeah, the tree hit me. Don't you believe in relativity? What are you, out of date?
What do you have?
I mean, the context of the conversation matters. I don't think you're gonna take a physics debate to your fucking insurance company.
Exactly, because you're going to get laughed at.
That is a bent car frame, not a reference frame. Believe me.
I was just to say that I was going to get pulled over for speeding and be like, oh well, no, actually the Earth is moving the opposite direction, so technically I was going under the speed limit. If you think about it that way, because the Earth is spinning, right? And if the cops start to argue, you're like, what are you, a flat earther? You don't think the world's spinning? Might leave you alone. Zanick, are you there? Are you avoiding this question? Are you trying not to say the tree moved toward the
He's just
car?
exhausted. He's exhausted. Sounds like.
What happened? Did Cyrus take him through
He
a
said
loop?
his head's. He said his head hurts.
You didn't hear he hit his 8 million words for the day.
He got his quota.
But anchovy reference frames, right? All refer to the lab frame to have any physical meaning behind them.
I would say practically yes, but if we're talking about reality,
That is reality.
being out, yeah, sure, but
Yeah, but dude, in
in
reality,
reality,
if we're talking about a
Oh,
tree
wait.
in
Let
a
him
car,
finish.
oh my
Oh,
bad.
I interrupted him too. Go ahead, anchovy. My bad.
well, I just want to say that in reality, something can be moving, even though to us it appears it's not.
All right, but in reality, if we have a tree, just a normal tree, it's planted in the ground. We know how trees work, right? And then we have a car. We know how cars work. We're driving the car around. Car is good. Uh, if we drive the car and hit the tree, like you got to know which one moved into the other one. Like it doesn't matter if you're on an aircraft carrier or a spinning globe. Like we're just worried about, did the tree move into the car or did the car move into the tree now?
I mean,
You gotta know the car moved into the tree. Like this isn't Lord of the Rings.
it depends on the context, bro. I don't really care which one's moving as long as I don't crash.
That was
You
a
understand
weird
what he
way to
was
get
getting
out of
at,
it,
though,
though.
right?
Yeah.
You understand the reason that he's asking it that way, because we know the tree didn't move unless you're saying that it doesn't matter which one, like you just did. It's not just a mathematical treated as a reference frame, so we can mathematically, figure out where the acceleration is, and you can say one's accelerating the other way, even though it's a tree mathematically, but dynamically, what's the answer? Did the car
This
hit
is
the
for
tree, or did
Carl.
the tree hit the car?
Well, unless I get off the reference frame of the Earth, I can't have a real answer, right?
Well, that's the issue. If the tree doesn't actually move, right? Because we know trees don't move; they just stay where they are mostly, right? Did the car drive into the tree? In reality, what's the lab frame here? Or do we just mathematically say it's the same difference? The tree moved toward the car. Kinematics and dynamics. You know about that, Anchovie, right? The difference.
We know the dynamics of trees and cars though, so like we would know in that scenario. what was the thing that was actually moving.
But literally
No one's
every
fighting.
single thing in physics and engineering, even satellites, all have to treat Earth as a real reference frame. Like you have to treat. You can't
Oh, the
ignore the
fact
lab frame.
the fact you don't know what's moving. Like we went through it with PhD John or whoever. He actually claims to have a PhD. He can't tell you what's moving when you drop something. If a tree, if a car drives into a tree, they never know what's actually moving in reality. He told me it was a silly to even ask that. It's silly. That's a silly even thing to even ask. What's moving? What's actually moving in reality?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. PhD John is a silly dude. He likes to get silly as well. You know what I mean?
Well, relativity, the Einsteinian relativity makes them have to answer that way because that's the
Well,
paradigm. They
it's their
can't put
philosophy.
there's
Yeah,
one lab frame. Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to
yeah.
throw away the fact that we know how cars work and we know how trees work. You have to get rid of everything else, and you're the only person in reality, and you don't know anything except for this one moment. Like that's literally what you got to do.
It makes you literally sound relativitarded.
Well, being a relativist in multiple ways is just not practical. Subjective
It's,
relativist, physics relativist, like relativity
it's
and
so fallacious.
yeah.
Yeah, we can have the contradictions all we want. We can have several contradictions as long as we deal with one reference frame at a time. Doesn't matter if
Bro,
they
the
contradict each
craziest
other.
one in relativity is the Andromeda paradox. You guys got to get up on that one. I've been telling you about it for months now.
You love paradoxes, don't you, Jeremy?
They're fun to kick around the office a little bit.
Is that a paradox you made based on the movie that you like so much? Or is that an actual thing?
What's up? The Andromeda
Is that
paradox?
something you
No,
made up based on a movie or something? Okay,
it's a real paradox in special relativity.
I'll just post
I'll
it.
look it up.
If there's two guys on a sidewalk. One of them sitting on a milk crate. Vesicles is just sitting on a milk crate on the sidewalk. I
Yo,
walk by him. I walk by him. If at that moment we observe the Andromeda galaxy at this, if we were doing it right at that moment, right when I am right next to him, he would observe a whole different set of events. Like he could observe like the Galactic Federation of Andromeda deciding if they want to attack Earth, and I might observe they already sent the ships. It could be like days later, where the ships are already on the way. They're coming. Pretty crazy.
it's funny. It sounds like you made that up, but as like off the top of your
Yeah,
head,
no.
that's literally what it says. The paradox arises when considering a distant event in Andromeda. For the stationary observer, the event might be part of a debate about launching an attack on Earth, while for the moving observer, the attack fleet might have already been launched.
Fire off the top like Michael Jackson in the Pepsi commercial.
The Andromeda paradox highlights the counterintuitive nature of time and simultaneity in Einstein's theory of relativity, particularly when dealing with very large distances. It also raises questions about the nature of time and whether the past, present, and future exist simultaneously in a four-dimensional reality.
You know who
Yeah.
came up with this paradox? Penrose. If you look at what Penrose did,
Roger
this guy's on
Penrose.
my this guy's on my top 5 smartest guys ever. Penrose.
Look into him.
But he's still on a spinning ball and is antipodal to himself 12 hours later every day.
Yep. Yep.
That's tough. Just think about that. You're antipodal to yourself every 12 hours to where you were 12 hours before. Is that happening?
No.
Just think deeply.
Literally
Is it happening?
No.
thick.
Hope not.
Thick as a brick.
Your entire orientation is 180 degrees upside down from where you are right now in 12 hours.
Sounds kind of cool.
Hey, yo, did you hear that definition of instantology I was talking about?
Instantology?
No.
It's like it's called instantology, right? And it's like so this is a little thing I found on it. It's a utopian ideology that tries to fix relation between the relative and the absolute. To do that, it uses assumptions about its fundamental paradigms, which it fixes arbitrarily to fix that relation. It is not serious philosophy. It is a cult panacea, since it does not allow or tolerate criticism of its own fundamental assumptions. And I just thought, like, damn, if that ain't the globe, I don't know
I
what
thought
is.
you
Yeah,
were.
that's special relativity right there for sure. You can't even point out the contradictions because it's one reference frame at a time. So there's no way to falsify it or criticize it in any way. Similar to that, completely.
I mean, they got a paradox going with the between relativity and F equals ma. That's a paradox.
Why not?
What's up?
Explain the paradox. I'm not familiar with that.
Well, it's a
Okay.
log of non-contradiction violation.
Okay.
When you drop something here on Earth, you have mass accelerating.
And you talking about upwards Earth as opposed to down jumping out of a plane.
No,
Okay.
no, no,
What
no.
are you
Listen,
talking about?
sorry, I got. Hold on, I got busy for a second. It's when you drop something here on Earth, you have mass accelerating. Newton says there's a force there. In general relativity, they say there's no force there. That's A and not A at the same time. You can't
Right.
have that. It's a law of non-contradiction violation.
Right. Yeah, they call it complementary.
No, it's totally contradictory. It can't.
I
You
agree.
can't.
Complementary.
It's the antithesis. Like you can't have A and not A. You can't have a force and not a force. It's A and
Yeah,
not A. It's textbook
but they deal
law
with
of
that.
non-contradiction.
Is that what they call it, though, New P? Is they call it complementary?
Yeah. Well, like the two different gravities. The Newton's gravity and
Yeah,
Einstein's
no, no,
gravity.
no.
They say
That's the
that.
cope. Yeah, that's the cope.
But
Yeah,
this
the
ain't
cope.
Newton's gravity
Right.
though. This is F. This ain't Newton's gravity. This is Newton's second law of motion. F equals ma. This ain't about Newton's gravity.
You mean it's just that they call gravity a force, but not a force? That whole thing?
Yeah, they say it's not a force.
Yeah.
They straight up
Right.
say it's not a force. But Newton would say
Right.
that there is a force there because you have mass accelerating.
Right.
That can't be. One of them has to be wrong.
Right. And don't they just get away by saying it's a pseudo force?
They say it's an apparent force.
But that doesn't help
Right.
because that's not of the force. That's not the force Newton was talking about. They say that's not the force. It's not a force. Like why? You know what I'm saying? They say it's not a force because they know it's not the force Newton was talking about. Pseudo forces aren't. They're not
Yeah.
just not real forces.
Just like upward earthers, they call it an apparent force.
Upward earthers.
Yeah.
What's
I
up?
love the lingo. I love our community, guys. I love you guys.
I mean,
By the way, we got to get rid of this whole gravimeter reading that people are tricked into thinking the Earth is moving upwards. Like this whole trick with the thing that doesn't have has a zero reading when at free fall. So now they're convinced that their whole reality is moving upward.
Yeah, New
That seems to
P's.
be the crux of it.
You saw the shirt.
But
I made that shirt for that one guy. It's gravimeters. Fuck the world.
no, I haven't seen it.
I was actually gonna make it gravimeters. Fuck flat Earth. You know.
Accelerometer is what I meant to say.
Uh,
Yeah.
the one that they talk about, the ADXL 335 or something like that, and they say it's analog, but when you put voltage in and then it has a capacitive plates, it's like reading out is going to be what they want. You know what I mean? That it's reading.
Yep.
Um,
It's
1G
calibrated
up.
that way, right?
basically proving gravity and upward flat earthers, whatever they're called, the rising earthers. So they're basically accepting that, but then they're saying no, it's not gravity. It's fucking the Earth is moving up. So I'm saying like these things are preloaded to read that shit. And in the
Yeah,
case
and
of
analog ones have
it's
springs.
going to be the result of the voltage in going through those capacitive plates, and then it's going to have that reading. That's all it is.
Right. And the analog ones seem to work in that way as well. They're not going to read a free fall, even if they do read an acceleration from zero in another direction or whatever. It's not free fall. It's
Bro,
supposed to
they'll
be
tell you.
like constructed that way.
Other
They'll tell you.
ones work as far as the ones that are like in the seismic. You know what I mean? They detect actual Earth motion, like earthquakes.
Right.
And they don't use that one. Funny, huh?
Yeah. What were you going to say, Jeremy?
They'll tell you
They'll
that
tell you
you're
what?
just
they'll tell you that you could just have like an apple on the ground, and they'll tell you that the apple's accelerating, even though it's
And
not,
they'll
and they
say the
can't.
ground is pushing up on the apple too.
But they can't describe they can't
Yeah, it's
describe
called.
any
They
movement
say
that
it's
it's actually.
proving normal force. That's what they say.
But they'll say it's accelerating. I'll have them read the definition of acceleration. We'll go through what velocity means and all that, and then in the end they'll not be able to tell me which direction the apple's moving in. They'll say they have acceleration with no movement, which is not that's not acceleration though. That's some other shit.
I thought they said it's a constant. It's moving at a constant rate up. And what's
Yeah, but they can't
accelerating
have it. It's just an
is
average
the pair.
The
acceleration though.
globe can't say it's moving up, dude.
No,
Well,
the
they say
globe
it's
has to
moving
now.
down.
Relativity says it is. No, remember, Jeremy, where the Zanick's in here trying to argue that you could have two antipodal skydivers and the Earth isn't getting bigger, but the Earth is actually moving up towards both skydivers.
No, the Earth's radius. You can't make the argument. Earth's radius would have to change. It'd have to get bigger and
Right,
bigger every time you drop something. You'd have to keep getting bigger and bigger. There's
right.
no dynamic or mechanism or measurement of that happening. Like that's just ridiculous.
But that's still
It's
their
complete.
interpretation. We've seen it. We've heard it many times. Zanuck's in here right now. What do you say, Zanuck? Is the Earth moving up towards the skydiver on both sides of the Earth?
Is about to break you off
Except
at a
deal with it
reference
one
frame.
reference frame at a time, right?
We're
You have
That's
to.
still
what
That's
using
what I
makes
was
reference
telling you
frames.
guys.
retarded.
I was telling you guys earlier. You have to forget everything and not know anything else about anything and just know that one moment, and that's it. Like you can't
That's
ask some other
retarded.
guy, "Hey, is the radius of Earth changing right now? It looks like it's coming up at me." And there's a guy on the other side. Like it's just not possible for the ground to be moving up and the ball to not be getting bigger because we're dropping shit all over the place. Things are falling everywhere right now. You know what I'm saying? Like it have to be going up in multiple opposite directions at the same time.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Zanuck must not be listening, or he'd already be talking.
You don't know if the car
Did,
crashes into the tree or the tree crashes into the car, bro. He's still stuck on that shit
he's
from
muted.
before.
I don't
Hey,
think
check
he's
it out.
participating. But did
Part
someone
of
say
their
my name earlier, or am I tripping?
part of their theory is everything is moving up at the same time. If everything is moving up at the same time, how can you detect like how could you detect that if everything is moving up? You know what I'm saying?
The globe can't do that anyway. Period.
I'm just saying that the rising earthers,
The flat Earth
that alone
upward.
destroys their whole argument.
Oh, dude, we'd be moving at light speed.
It
There was
doesn't.
actually a split in between that group because they were at first everyone was saying it was a constant speed it was going up, but I tried explaining to them for a very long time that that just doesn't do anything for you because you still have an acceleration that's not being accounted for in your scenario. So eventually, some of them were like, "Okay, the Earth is accelerating up," but there's a huge problem with that. Is that I'm in my 40s. I know my grandparents. We would have been accelerating up at a rate of 9.8 meters per second squared for hundreds of years, if not thousands by now, and that is a really fast speed. Like light speed, like that's like Spaceballs ludicrous speed. You're gonna go plat on that shit.
Is
But
it
also, if
Spaceball? Is it
everything is
Spaceballs
moving up,
two?
sorry.
Spaceball is it Spaceballs two ludicrous speed?
I don't
Dude, I
know.
was just gonna say, actually, speaking of Spaceballs too, did we discuss this yet? I think we did, right? There's a new Spaceballs coming out.
I'm psyched.
I
That's
know,
a classic.
I know.
Classic.
That's like gonna be good.
There's gonna be so much ammo to roast the Globers with
Um,
in this too. Because think about how
Ludicrous.
much all the
Oh,
stuff
dude,
we
I
used
hope
from the
they go
first one.
flat Earth. I hope they
Think
got a
about how
flat
much
Earth.
stuff we used from the first one, like when we say we can't have gas pressure without a container, and in that they had the Statue of Liberty with the vacuum cleaner
It's
suck all the
sucked out.
oxygen
Yeah,
out
yeah.
when she opened the dome and shit.
Dude,
Even
it's gonna be so
Spaceballs too,
good.
you had to have gas pressure with a container.
It's. I hope they go flat Earth. I hope like BOB's in it.
You're a daydreamer.
Oh, dude, if he's the guy that's like, we ain't found shit, like I don't even know how they fucking do it. I hope it's not a remake. That's for sure.
Pizza the Hut.
It's just all the stupid
Uh,
shit.
good stuff.
Dude, the one
I'm pumped for this. I can't wait.
with
When's
the
this coming
working
out?
alien that jumps out and does like the top hat dance at the fucking
That shit was classic, dude. When that
yeah.
happened, I saw it in the theater. I was fucking busting up.
I don't know actually. I don't know
All right, what were we
for
at?
certain.
New perspective. Get us back
So
on
hold on.
track here.
I was watching
Mel Brooks. Mel
Spaceballs
Brooks
2
is still
announcement.
around.
Hold on, East
Hey
is
yo,
finally
real quick,
muting you.
calm
What did
down.
you say?
Calm down. You've been a minute. I haven't seen you around in a minute, man. It's good to fucking hear you.
Yes,
Yeah, I
I
hear
GM.
you.
haven't heard that
I hear you,
motherfucker.
dude.
I haven't heard you for a minute. But
What'd you say?
fucking right. New perspective.
Yeah, he said it's good to hear your
All right.
voice, bro.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, when's it coming out?
What's going on right here, Dave? Dave, get us back on.
Yeah.
Get us back
Yeah, I
on
was just
track
thinking
here.
about. I just watched the Spaceball 2 announcement.
I was
Spaceball
talking to
2.
calm down. Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah. Fucking
Okay,
right.
Isa. I think he's just hot micing. Are you just hot micing, or I don't know what's going on with this guy? What's up, Dave? What were you thinking about?
Oh, sorry, I was watching the Spaceballs 2 teaser. I hadn't seen anything about it. Yeah, we can't get any ballers. I mean, Anchovie, are you still here? Anchovie seems like one of the more reasonable ballers.
He's
And
very semi reasonable.
yeah,
Slightly semi reasonable.
I'm stepping
I
in
would
and
hate
out,
it.
but if it's about reference frames, I'm not even going to get into that.
Let's go.
Let's
We
get
love
into
reference
it.
frame. I'll go reference frame. You know,
Fisk
if
and
I go back,
Einstein. Come on.
if I go back to my DMs with Zanick 4 years ago, it's all about reference frames. That's all we've been DMing about for 4 years.
I mean, I'm up to talk to him about it maybe later, but right now I'm in and out of the chat, so I don't want to be like pausing the conversation.
Yeah, no
But
doubt.
I mean, just on his face, I think if you knew nothing about the theories or whatever, and you heard someone say all reference frames, everything's valid in all reference frames, always, all the time, or whatever, however Zanuck puts it, like all reference frames are valid, even if they contradict each other, they're still valid separately. And I mean, that's just like fallacious on its face. You can understand why we just like laugh at that, right? At least.
Well, I understand Coriolis implicitly. So,
Oh, we're not gonna get into that right
like,
now.
once you know
Well, yeah.
about that, it's over.
Well, Zanuck's point still stands. I think I could appreciate his point, but it's
What's his
like it
point?
doesn't. Well, no, the idea, but like in each individual frame, it's like it's real, but at the same time, like you can't like tie that to reality. You know what I mean? You'd have to.
Oh
Yeah,
my no! What the hell did
You'd
you
have
just
to
say?
depart it. Well, I mean, when you're talking about skydivers, anyway, like you can't like in each reference frame is legit for the person experiencing it, but
But
at the
not
same
legit
time,
for
it's
reality
not
though.
like yeah, you know what I mean. You have to like go to. I guess what he's saying is you have to go to a different reference frame to realize they're both going inward at the globe or some shit.
oh no, but then
Up to
they're
them, the Earth
saying
is
that
coming.
both of
Like, I
them
don't know,
are
just
valid. They're saying that that's the way reality
no,
is.
no, I
That's
get
their
it.
claim. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Right, but but then they're limiting it and they're putting the caveat of in that reference frame, and that's
You
where
have
they're
to
like,
block
that's
yourself
their
out.
escape,
You got to block yourself out from the
which
whole
I
rest of
get.
the world. You can't know anything else. You're just this guy in this one moment, and you can't know anything before or after. Just this one moment. That's all. That's all you know. That's it. You have to
Well,
completely
it's
shut
just
yourself off.
yeah, it's like they give up. Okay, dynamics don't matter, contradictions don't matter, reality doesn't matter. It's just a kinematic interpretation of each reference frame at a time. It's a total cop out and totally makes them sound retarded.
Like you
That's
couldn't
the
have guys
that's what they're
parachuting.
stuck with.
Like you couldn't have guys parachuting all over the globe. Watch them. Somebody watches them from the moon. Somebody's measuring Earth. They're doing Eratosthenes. Like, nope, radius didn't change, guys. You guess what? You
Hold
were going
on,
down at the Earth.
Jeremy, did you say
Uh,
you can account for the Coriolis effect on a flat Earth?
No, I said once you know about
oh.
Coriolis. I said once you know about Coriolis effect, it's over. You understand reference frames.
Okay.
Is that a
I
baller
mean,
asking about Coriolis?
could the ether do it? I don't know. Could it be from the universe is moving around us and that's what's doing it? I don't know.
Was that a baller trying to claim that
I
Coriolis
don't know,
effect
man.
is not accounted for or something like that on the flat Earth? That's a gauntlet prospect.
No, I'm saying because I mean, I know some flat earthers that like to bring up the rotating disk argument of the Coriolis effect, and that wouldn't make any sense.
No, you
But I don't know
don't
if
know
you're
any
saying
flat
those in
earthers
here.
that you don't know a flat earther that says it's a rotating disc. That's ridiculous. You
I
just
know
made that
some
up.
that say the sky is
Uh,
rotating, and
that's not
according
a
to
real flat earth.
relativity, it wouldn't make a difference if the ground is rotating or if the dome is. And so they say it's the
Oh,
same
okay.
thing, and so
I
therefore you
thought
can
you
make
were
the
saying
argument.
flat earthers were claiming they're on a rotating disc. Okay.
No, 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 no. That would be extremely rare to come across.
That would be stupid.
I agree.
That'd be like sick. But yeah, so but the Coriolis, don't you think that could just be a conflation with the Stagnac effect?
With the what?
The Stagnac effect. Are you familiar with that?
Define it. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, just look it up. I mean, that's the thing. Whatever the 15 degrees is, that the three ring laser gyros picking up, or whatever they're calibrating the gyros on the plane for, with so that their instruments don't drift. it's just a slight drift. It could be just a conflation with that they're calling the Coriolis effect, if anything, is even necessary. Because the Coriolis effect is just thrown out anyway. They're saying the winds would be stronger in a plane, so there's no reason to account for Coriolis in planes. And same thing with artillery. There's so many other factors that might be also affecting the trajectory of the bullet or whatever. So you can put the Coriolis in there as if it were something you need to account for, but the effects of other things could override that. So you'll never know if it's
Okay.
actually something you're accounting for.
Sure, but what about the perpendicular Coriolis effect that happens?
Well, that's
Do
an
you know about
interesting
that?
one. Well, what's your claim? Yeah, but what's your claim?
Well, okay. So the initial claim on the ball Earth and heliocentric rotating ball Earth theory is that, or in the model, is that we're carried along with the inertia of the spinning ball, right? So that's why when we jump or move up or whatever, we kind of stay to the same point on the ball because we're being pushed along via friction of the rotating ball. But if you were to rise up with a helicopter, obviously you still have the same initial inertia. But let's say you're on the equator and you're moving along, and you're rotating at the same speed that the equator would be rotating at. If you move up, obviously to make a complete rotation, you would have to be moving faster to make the same rotation. So the further you move up, if you keep the same initial speed that you have from the inertia of being on Earth, then you're going to be starting to drift the further up you go. And we do notice this with helicopters going up. And the further you go up, the more you drift away from because you lose speed relative to what you would keep for the same orbit or to do the same rotation around for one day, right? So there's like sort of
Okay.
two Coriolis effects.
Right. Well, there would be if the Earth were moving, there would have to be that effect, right? Like you'd have to have a force that in the higher altitudes, even though it's thinner air, that pushes the helicopter or person along to stay in sync with the Earth, right? Is what you're saying? But
Well,
there's
what
not
I'm
that, so
saying
that's
is
why they fall
if you
behind.
not really. What I'm saying is if you're standing on the Earth, you're moving along with the Earth at that speed. So to make
Right.
one rotation, you can stay along with the surface. But
Right. I understand it.
if you move upwards,
Bigger
you're gonna
circle.
have to increase your speed because you're gonna be
Right.
like further away, right? So
Right.
that's the reason that if you're in a helicopter and you just move upwards, the further up you go, you're gonna drift away from your starting point without moving left, right, or backwards or forwards because you get that relative drift because of the distance and the speed required to stay along with that point on the surface.
Okay. So well, first of all, it'd be nice to have a citation for that, but it's great if that is the case. That'd be great. Then just take a camera, put it out the window, show the Earth is moving eastward at a different rate than the helicopter is, and you can prove that the Earth actually moves with that theory that you just came up with. You just say, look,
Hmm.
I've got this
Yeah.
tangential velocity that's not keeping up with the Earth, and it's moving left to right underneath my helicopter, or maybe make it something without a motor, so none of that would happen. It would happen with a hot air balloon too. Hot air balloon goes up, and same philosophy. Then the Earth should be moving eastward eventually underneath the hot air balloon, and then you can just show the Earth rotates, and you'd have your ball.
Yeah.
Why don't they do that? Because the Earth is fucking stationary. That's why.
No, but what do you mean people have done that?
Oh, really? They're showing the Earth moving underneath a hot air balloon with a camera.
Yes. But
Really?
the
Oh, great.
problem
Post that.
when you
I
see
would
those
love to see
videos,
it.
no, listen. The problem is when you watch those videos, you just think, oh, it's moving along with the wind. It's just traveling forwards. Like you don't take into account all the relativistic facts that are actually going on, right? That
Well,
if
again,
it's
that's the same
moving,
thing. You're
you just
conflating
don't
it with
think
the wind thing.
how.
Well, then you're saying you can't tell if it's the wind
Yeah.
pushing
So
the
what you
balloon
do is,
or the Earth is
so
moving, right? So you'd have to be able to
yes.
differentiate those two to actually
Yeah,
make that
but
claim.
so what you do is, so to prove this, you take a flight and then you measure all the speeds of the wind across the whatever path you're traveling, and then you see if that matches up with what you would calculate the winds to push you with the surface area of the balloon and everything. And then
Yeah.
then you can account for, and then you can see, oh, there was probably some rotation happening underneath or not,
And you're saying
right?
they've
Would you
done this,
agree
or is it
that's
something you would do?
well, I'm
Someone's
saying
done
if
this,
you
you
do
said?
that experiment, I'm saying
Oh,
if you do that experiment, would you say that qualifies as good proof that the Earth is a ball that is rotating? If you were to do
well,
this experiment.
you could do it a lot easier anyway, because you could just put accelerometers on your balloon, and you'd know if it's accelerating one direction or another, right?
Yeah.
Put it on the bottom of the basket. You'd know if it's accelerating in the opposite direction because of wind. And then you could, have your camera underneath the basket too, aimed right at the Earth. And then if it's moving east to west to east at a constant rate, then you then just stay, with your accelerometers and keep the balloon in a stationary position on all sides so that it's not accelerating one way or another. then you show your Earth spins very easily. Someone would have done that if the Earth actually spins. They would have done that a long time ago. They would have shown
you could
shown
do that
everybody
very
that the
easily.
Earth actually spins. Well, what about you could also do it with airplanes, or jets? Like, what about these jets that can fly 1,000 miles an hour, 2,000 miles an hour? You think they'd ever be able to get out of sync with the Earth? You think a jet that flies 2,000 miles an hour can get out of sync with the Earth and show the Earth spins too?
This is
Or,
the problem. This leads me to the thing where people also say, "Oh, pilots have to like dip their pitch down all the time to follow the curve." Like
I'm talking
it
about
lends itself
I'm
to
talking
the
about
same
the
thing.
tangential gradient. See, the tangential gradient fucks it all up for you guys, in my opinion. Because
Yeah,
if
but
it's
if you keep
1,000
a
miles an hour at the
consistent
equator,
speed,
what?
yeah, if you keep a
Yeah, if it's 1,000
consistent
at the
speed,
equator, okay, so the pilot's doing what? Consistent speeds for what? To stay in sync with the Earth? What are you trying
if
to say?
he's going faster than the rotational speed at the equator, and it's
Yeah.
being a consistent speed, he's going to keep a consistent altitude.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the pitch down. I don't care about the pitch. I'm talking about the eastward tangential velocity of the Earth compared to the eastward tangential velocity of the pilot or the plane
Yeah,
that the pilot's
yeah.
controlling, right? Those have to be in perfect sync for the pilot to always just assume that it's stationary when he lands, or you just take a camera and put it out the window and show that you're flying south or north, and it's moving left to right or right to left underneath you, and you can show the Earth rotates. They would have done that a long time ago if the Earth actually rotates. Is my point.
They do account for that Coriolis effect. I mean, if you're on a sphere,
No, we don't.
it's obviously going to be moving faster eastwards, and I mean, depending on if we look at it
Yeah,
eastwards, yeah. Then if you move up northwards or south, it's going to be moving slower in the east-west
right.
direction, right?
But
And
they
so
don't
you're
account
going to
for
be
that. They don't
drifting, and
try to.
they do account for that.
No, no.
They
They just
do. What do
say
you mean?
it
What
was.
do you mean?
It
No.
no. They say that the winds would be stronger than any Coriolis effect would ever really measure anyway. So you can never tell if it's the Coriolis or the winds. And they try to make it seem like the same thing, which I agree with,
I
actually.
mean,
The Coriolis drift, whatever that would be, you could have winds that are actually pushing your plane faster or slower, or faster in one direction or another, more so than the Coriolis would ever be measured. So
oh,
that's already
oh.
thrown out the window.
I know how to reconcile this. I think because
Okay.
the problem is you're thinking. I think yeah, because I can also think this way, but you're thinking of a continuous correction. But if you're accounting for the Coriolis effect, so if you're already flying in the plane and you see what direction you're going, and then you point your plane towards the direction where you will end up. You point towards your direction. That in and of itself has all the calculations in the direction for the Coriolis effect accounted for it already because you're traveling in the direction with the drift of the Coriolis effect to account for that direction. So you're going to think that you're going in the direction that is straightforward when you're in the drift of the Coriolis effect's acceleration on every distance measure you make forwards. So you already
Yeah,
make
you can
that
imagine
connection
it
and you
that way.
aim. No, but that's what happens though. That is what you do.
No, it's not. No, it's not. They don't calculate the Coriolis effect into the path that they're taking. But you can think of it that way if you think about them correcting for a path, and then all of a sudden they're at that latitude where the ball Earth is said to be moving at a tangential velocity of 700 or whatever it is. Then you just assume that your plane corrected for Coriolis and it's moving eastward at 700 miles an hour, even though it could be aimed in a completely different direction. That's why I make my scenario that I asked ballers about, that the pilot's aimed west southwest, right? And he's going from a 500 mile per hour latitude to the 1,000 mile an hour equator. But he's going against the spin the whole time, and he's got no course. He's just a joyriding
Well,
pilot. He's doing big
yes,
loops all over the place. There's no course corrections. Wait, let me finish. He's going to land in the clearing. He's got no destination. He's going to land in the clearing at the equator around there. He's going to always be able to treat the Earth as stationary. He's never going to have to worry about any kind of movement of where he's landing on because pilots always, 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 no matter where they go and what they do, can always just assume to treat the Earth as stationary. And they also then, if they think they're on a ball, in the back of their minds have to assume that the Earth is moving at the exact same rate as their plane so they can treat it as stationary, even if they made no corrections, had no path. It just debunks it because the plane would have to be moving backwards if it's aimed westward. When it's slowing down to a 0 mile an hour to land, you have to assume that if it took off from a 500 mile per hour eastward tangential velocity and it conserved all that momentum, and you can keep your all 500 mile an hour eastward tangential velocity. You can have it all, even though it would dissipate from the friction of the air. As soon as it got in the air, it would start to dissipate. But even if you kept all the 500 eastward tangential velocity, and you can imagine the plane's moving at still the same rate it took off from, which is never accounted for or measured or anything anyway. But even if you kept all that, now it's got to be going twice as fast when it gets to the equator to treat the clearing that it finds to land in as stationary, even if it's facing the opposite direction. Now, what do you say?
right, but you understand that in my model that it is traveling in three different directions simultaneously, and I'm talking about the direction that is the resultant vector of that motion.
Okay, so what's that do for you? Where's vector 500 mile an hour come from? Eastward. That eastward vector has nothing to do with the forward motion of the plane, especially if it's going west southwest. You can't even say there's corrections eastward if it's facing the opposite direction and going south. Even if there was a kind of even if he had a
I'm
path to
saying,
follow, he couldn't be correcting for a path eastward when he's going in the opposite direction. So
yeah,
what's
but
making the plane go in perfect sync with the Earth so we can treat it as stationary when it lands? What's your
I'm saying,
mechanism?
since it is moving in 3D space, one vector is always pointing towards what would be the Coriolis effect on the motion of the plane, and then one angle of the plane is going to be moving directly, pushing it forwards from the engines, pointing in a different direction. The resultant of all those directions are going to be what the plane is ultimately moving in, and that is going to be what looks like the forward motion, which is your goal and where you're going to land. So even if you account and include the Coriolis effect, it is going to look forwards. It is going to look like you're going towards your goal anyways.
Well,
You're
he's going towards the
confusing
goal,
it
right?
from a stationary perspective. You're confusing the
No,
angle from
not at
you're
all.
imagining like a sideways drift. That is not what you have to do in reality.
No, I'm not even talking about Coriolis effect. We already threw that out. The winds
The winds, what?
could be stronger than the drift that the Coriolis would be causing, right? We're not talking
Yeah,
about
but we can
Coriolis.
calculate it.
We're talking about a 500 mile per hour eastward tangential velocity difference. The vector eastward, just directly eastward. The plane has to be moving directly eastward in perfect sync with the Earth, the surface of the Earth. Yeah, but even if you calculated it as if the plane is moving eastward at the same exact rate, what's your mechanism? What's making the plane move backwards as it's facing westward and slowing to a land? How is it still moving backwards at 1,000 miles an hour so it can treat the Earth as stationary when it lands?
You're in the
What's the
plane.
mechanism that's making the plane
It's
still going at
Elevator,
1,000 miles an hour?
ailerons,
All that
rudder.
conserves
you're not
momentum you can keep, but it's not moving 1,000 miles an hour backwards
you're
as
not
it's close
taking
to the
into
land. Right?
consideration
Somebody
the
else is going
inertial
to.
reference frame.
Okay, explain yourself.
You
Let him
can
do this,
fly the
Zanick, real quick,
plane.
because this guy, I want to hear what the guy's answer is on this.
Right.
Zanick, please don't butt in. I want to hear this guy try to go through this process. Go ahead. What are you saying? I'm not considering what the inertial reference frame.
You're explaining a backwards motion as a relativistic motion towards the maximum of the equatorial motion of the spin, right?
No, I'm just saying that the ball model, the globe model says that the Earth is literally spinning faster at the equator, in this case, twice as fast as where the plane took off from. So how is the plane moving eastward, no matter which direction he's aiming when he lands, in perfect sync so the pilot can just assume to treat the Earth as stationary? What's the mechanism making the plane
Because
go in perfect sync with the Earth?
because when you're moving in a direction and it's off sync and you notice, oh shit, this is an off sync motion, the plane adjusts itself in such a way to move in a way where it looks like you're moving towards your target, and all three vectors of space that account for the Coriolis effect are accounted for in the flight path.
Right, but you don't understand because you said the plane does it. Like the pilot says, "Oh shit," but then the plane does it. What do you mean?
It ends up
The pilot
looking
realizes
like
that he's out of sync with the Earth, and he tries to adjust to be in sync with the Earth. Is that what you're claiming?
this is not an enormous effect.
No, it's a 500 mile per hour difference from where he took off from. It's twice as fast. He's got to be going directly eastward so he can treat the Earth as stationary when he lands. How's that working when he's
Well,
facing the
it
opposite
moves on
direction?
a
Planes aren't even made to go backwards.
scale.
That doesn't help you.
It moves on a scale. You
What's the
understand that, right?
mechanism? It moves. The pilot moves the plane on a scale, or the plane does it for himself, for
The
the pilot.
Coriolis
What's your
effect.
actual
The
claim?
Coriolis effect
No, we're
moves on
not
a
talking
scale.
about Coriolis. Coriolis was hidden in the winds at the beginning of this conversation. Coriolis has nothing to do with this at this point. We're talking about the
Okay.
eastward tangential velocity of the ground he took off from compared to where he's landing, which is twice as fast. What's the mechanism that keeps the plane in sync so that he can always assume to treat the Earth as stationary, even without a path or a destination?
Listen. What would be the mechanisms for seasons on a flat Earth?
No, we're not going to that. Why are you trying to change the subject? You have no mechanism to make. If
Listen,
planes can't,
I'm
can
too
you do a
high for this.
hypothetical?
I'm too high for this.
I know. Okay, let me just do a hypothetical then, since you're so high, right? Just one hypothetical. If the planes really couldn't, if there was no answer for this, right, and planes really don't have any mechanism or technique or any kind of accounting for this tangential gradient that would make it impossible for him to treat the Earth as stationary, you'd have to agree the globe model has a problem because planes land every single day safely, treating the Earth as stationary without accounting for this. You see the problem? Hypothetically, that would
because
be a problem unless there was an answer you don't
when
know
you're
that actually exists.
no, when you're doing a landing approach on an airplane, you can like the way that you see that you're approaching the ground, your three-dimensional resultant angle is making it look as towards the flat, or it looks like a stationary ground below you, because you're
What's making it do
traveling
that?
towards the
What's
ground
making
at
it
that
look like
point.
a stationary ground? Wait, be specific. What's making it look like that?
It's a slow approach, and it's adjusted for beforehand because you're flowing in a direction that ultimately aims towards your goal.
No, there's no goal. Remember, this is just a joyriding pilot. He's just going to do big loops, and he's just going to go all over the place, and eventually he's going to land where it's twice as fast. There's no destination, no path to a correct course, none of that. What's making the
No,
plane in perfect sync with the Earth?
when he's close to the runway, there's not a lot of Coriolis effect to account for anymore.
We're not
And
talking about
when
Coriolis.
you're
We're
very
talking about the twice as fast difference of the ground. Twice as fast is where he took off from. If you conserved all the
no,
momentum
now
from
he's
where he took off from,
no. Now he's still in the same inertial reference frame.
no, he's not.
You can't compare.
He's
Yeah,
in
he
a
is.
separate reference frame. You know that. That's the reason you even talk about Coriolis is two reference frames. That's why there would be a Coriolis to even be in the conversation or conserve momentum because there's two
Yeah, but you're
reference frames.
talking about landing, right? You're talking about landing.
Yeah, and treating the Earth as stationary as if it's one reference frame when really it's two reference frames, and the plane's not moving backwards twice as fast unless you have a
I'm
mechanism
saying,
that's actually accounting for that. There's no mechanism you can
I'm
name, bro. There's no mechanism that's doing that.
I'm saying that the plane has a speed, but not relative to the ground. It's not. It is the descending speed isn't relative and isn't vibrating up and down. You control
Yeah,
for it.
so it's relative to a stationary ground. The ground speed is, the ground speed is just relative to a stationary ground. So that has nothing to do with this, right? We're talking about a moving
What I'm
ground
saying
that would
is,
be going twice as fast as where he took off from. How is the plane in sync?
but if you're in
He's
the
facing
air
the
and
opposite
you're
direction, by the way.
zero, if you're in the air and you're 0 miles per hour relative to the ground, so you're just stationary, then you're just moving at the same speed as the ground is rotating at that point on Earth.
Well, you would be if you actually accounted for that tangential difference, but you didn't. You have to have a mechanism that made the plane go eastward twice as fast so we can treat the Earth as stationary at the equator. What's your
We
mechanism?
don't account for it because it's irrelevant.
It would be irrelevant if the Earth is stationary, but if it actually is moving twice as fast, it'd be very relevant. That's the problem.
It
That's why it
doesn't
debunks
matter.
the globe. It doesn't
It
matter
doesn't
because the
matter.
Earth is stationary, but it would matter if the Earth is moving twice as fast as where he took off
We
from.
no, we could just consider it stationary. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does matter because you can only consider it stationary if it's actually stationary, bro. That's why it debunks the globe.
No. Welcome to relativity,
No, it
bro.
doesn't. We'll just say it's one reference frame, even though it's a inertial and non-inertial reference frame. We'll just treat it as if it's the same, reference frame, and we'll just pretend that it's not moving, or that it's moving, but it's actually not moving, and we don't ever have to account for any of this, even though we talk about Coriolis and the tangential velocity difference and all that. We're going to talk about that as if it applies, but then it's irrelevant once we actually get down to bare bones of what the pilot would need to do or what the plane would need to do to actually make up for the difference of where it took off from compared to where it's landing. It's just ridiculous. This debunks it. It's a direct contradiction that there is no answer for.
Yeah. We could talk about lunar phases, but I wouldn't want to get
You'd
into
like
that
you'd like
now.
to do that at this point, wouldn't you? Because you realize the plane can't be going backwards, right, at 1,000 miles an hour when it only had a 500 mile per hour conserved momentum. You realize that there's no mechanism. Even if you said it was the air, we know the wind's going all directions, so you can't say the air is just. And the only time that the air is supposedly in sync with the Earth is when there's no wind. So you have to then imagine that it's the air that has no wind that's keeping the plane moving backwards twice as fast as where it took off from. So the Earth, outside the purview of the pilot dealing with any of that.
Hold on. What
I
do you
mean,
mean by moving backwards? Explain that.
if it's facing westward when it lands, right, against the spin, right, it's facing the opposite
Yeah.
direction. So if it's
Okay.
slowing down to 0 mile an hour facing westward or at an angle or whatever, you have to imagine that the air or the plane or something is making the plane still be in perfect sync with 1,000 mile an hour rotation as it's flowing to a land in the opposite direction. That's backwards.
Yeah. You
Hey, you know
understand
those
that it's just
caster
move. No,
wheels,
no, no,
those
no.
caster wheels that are on your desk chair, your like computer chairs? How do you know the airplanes don't have those? And they're just landing and they turn whatever way, whatever way the Earth's
Yeah,
turning when they're landing.
you'd have to have caster wheels.
Yeah,
Otherwise, the wheels would
caster
break
wheels.
off.
No.
If there's a perpendicular direction, even in the slightest of the runway or the clearing or whatever it is he's landing on. So that never happens. The pilot never has to worry about the tangential gradient. That's why we know every single
Well,
day
I can explain
the
it.
pilots,
I can
the
explain it.
planes are proving that we're not on a ball
See,
because they would
magic.
have to account for this.
It's magic.
I can explain that
It's
perfectly.
it's a test that
It's
proves
very
it every day.
easy.
Okay, go ahead. All right, go ahead.
It's very easy.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the way that the
It's
plane
irrelevant, right?
approaches, like, no, listen, no,
Okay.
listen, I can explain it. The way that the plane approaches, the way that it takes from that. So if you imagine back in time from where it came from, it had to have launched from that same direction back in time. So if it had the same inertial reference frame of moving along with the Earth backwards at that point, it had to move against that. So if it's moving 700 miles per hour in the air towards its destination, and the Earth is moving 1,000 miles away in the opposite direction, which was the initial starting reference frame, it's going to be moving 300 miles away backwards from the eastwards direction of the Earth.
You're talking about if
But
it stays at the same latitude?
hold on, that is still going to be a forwards motion, and you're going to be able to land.
Well,
So
yeah, but
let's
you're
try to
talking about if
explain
it
that.
stayed at the same
Do you
latitude the whole time.
understand how that makes sense?
Wait, did you understand that that's only if if it stayed at the same latitude? You can think about it mathematically as subtracts the 300 or 700 is going this direction, and it can land because it was already moving at 1,000 miles an hour. So you just subtract the forward motion. But the way I make it is that it started with a 500 mile per hour latitude. Now it has to be moving eastward at 1,000 miles an hour to reach the Earth is stationary. Stick with the scenario that I laid out. It's got no ground pass. It's got no destination. He's doing big loops. In fact, he even flew back to where he came from because he thought he forgot something, and then he flew back to the equator because he remembered he didn't need whatever it was. So now you got to imagine that somehow he's keeping in such sync with the Earth and all these big loops, even going back to his original destination, and now the plane's going to the right at the exact same rate as the Earth and slowing down, and then speeding back up as he goes back to where he's planning on, approximately landing. You got to imagine that somehow this magic atmosphere or the plane corrections, even though there's no path, is keeping him in sync. So the Earth will always look stationary from out the window and always be perfectly stationary when he's landing without any accounting for this 500 mile per hour difference eastward directly. Doesn't work. There's no answer for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your answer?
Dude, I'm too hard for this, dude. I'm
Yes,
just
you're
gonna
just saying no.
make sure.
You have no answer. You said it was irrelevant. Okay, last question. If you're too high to deal with it,
You
there's no
win.
answer
You
anyway. So
win.
I'll let you
You
off the hook.
win.
Okay.
You win.
One last question though,
You
just
win.
for fun. What would be the difference in how you would treat a wait? This is just one. We have to. You can answer with one word. What would be the difference in how you would train a pilot to fly and land on a stationary level Earth compared to how you would train a pilot to fly and land on a rotating oblate spheroid Earth? What would be the difference in how you would train those pilots?
I would train those pilots on how to control the aircraft, how to maintain altitude, and how to land when they approach
No, the difference between the
their.
two pilots. The one that's flying over a stationary level Earth, and then the other one is flying over a oblate spinning spheroid with a tangential gradient Earth.
It doesn't make much of a difference.
Much of a difference or any difference? Most pilots say
It
there'd be
doesn't
no
make
difference.
it doesn't make much of a difference.
Well, if you
That's
say
all I can
much, if
say.
you have a qualifier, then you have to say what the difference would be. You might as well just
There
answer
would
like all
be
the
a
other
slight
callers and say there's no
Coriolis
difference.
effect, but if you account for that manually, you would have to do that at the start. And then,
And it's,
but
the
you'd
winds would
notice that
it would be
visually.
lost and they'd be
You'd
hidden in the
notice
winds
that
anyway, right?
visually.
Yeah, but you wouldn't notice it because the winds could be hidden in the wind, so you wouldn't really notice the Coriolis effect anyway. So you might as well go with no difference really anyway, because they could be accounting
But
for
it's
the
not much
Coriolis
of a
from the
difference
winds, and it
anyway.
wouldn't make any difference. Yeah, it wouldn't be any different according to the ballers, but I just pointed out the reason it would be very different. Because if it was the
But
ground was
that's
moving
why
twice
when
as fast as where he took off from, and there wasn't a mechanism to make the plane in perfect sync with a 1,000 mile an hour rotation, there'd be a big difference, and they would have to be trained specially, and the planes would have to be made differently. And aircraft carrier takes special training. Aircraft carrier pilots are
Answer this.
just they're landing on a slightly drifting
but yeah,
surface.
but have you ever? I mean, I don't know how often you've been on an aircraft and traveled, but pretty much every time at the end they move around a lot. They kind of turn left and right a lot because
Because
they're
of winds.
never lined. But they're never lined up
Because the Earth
perfectly
is
from the
spinning.
start.
Right now,
Can
you're
we
not
take
going to
a
try to make
moment
that. Wait, hold on, wait. I have to make sure that
perspective?
he's not going to try to end on saying, "Well, he's not aligned with the runway, and that's somehow it's moving at a different rate eastward," and that's what it is. No,
Perspective.
winds are
Can
totally different.
I make a quick
Winds
statement?
are totally different. There's two things. If you had to deal with winds and a moving ground that's going twice as fast as where he took off from, that would be two things to deal with, not just
Can I
one.
make a quick statement? Just a quick thing. I know you
Okay,
guys
here we
want
go.
to hear what this new guy has to talk
Oh,
about.
he's done. He gave up. He said I wouldn't. Go ahead.
Well, no. So I just think maybe you could look at it from another perspective. Let's say there was no spin of the Earth, and you're flying over this presupposed sphere, and you're doing your southwest directional, path, and there was a crosswind that was exactly 1.5 miles per hour the entire time. So the pilot would be able to deal with that, right? Nothing's rotating, but you have a crosswind. It's 1.5 miles per hour all the way down. By the time you get down to over the 9 hours or 10 hours of flight or 15 hours of flight, probably with like how many miles is that? That's somewhere about mid North America to the equator. Call it 15 hours, whatever. After that period of time, you're going to be going tangential velocity. If you just did not incorporate that crosswind, you would be going 500 miles an hour faster.
fighting the crosswind because you've been using that. You've been going against the crosswind the whole way down. So you actually now, if you didn't have a crosswind and you put that same input of steering that you were counteract that crosswind, you would actually be way off target and somewhere in Japan. So
Yeah, but
what's
what's your
wrong with
point? You
what's
said
wrong?
Earth
There's
is
no difference
stationary in
in
this
my,
scenario,
my
right?
mind. I mean, I'm positioning this to say to you, there's no difference to the controlling the plane whether you're doing that or the Coriolis effect has that same 1.5 miles per hour per minute type of effect on the plane. The pilot wouldn't know the difference between the two scenarios.
Right, I agree with that. There could be a wind, or it could be Coriolis he's correcting for, and he wouldn't know. Right, that's why the Coriolis isn't even what we're talking about. We're talking about the difference in the tangential velocity of the plane that would have to be moving backwards if he's facing westward when he's landing, especially if he has no course that he's correcting for the whole time, which is why I make this scenario very specific. He's got no course. He's joyriding pilot. He's making big loops over many different tangential velocities. So he'd have to be moving left and right at different times in perfect sync with a new tangential velocity. Because otherwise, you could just put a camera out the window and show that as he's going north or south, the Earth is moving left or right underneath him, and you got your rotating Earth proof. They would have done that. That's how this
The Earth would be
conversation started.
moving.
You could just prove
Yeah,
the
the Earth
Earth.
would be moving the Earth would be moving to the east, obviously, with respect to the plane.
Yeah.
Now think about this. Now we have something many orders of magnitude greater than the crosswind or Coriolis, a 200 mile an hour crosswind going toward Japan. So now you're fighting Earth rotation and the 200 mile crosswind. You've really got that yoke. You get your stick, your yoke, whatever,
Yeah.
turning to the left.
And no ground path to correct for even. Like he's got no ground path in my scenario, so he's just a joyriding pilot.
No,
He's
you're
letting the
you
wind blow wherever. You know, that's
You're
why I make the scenario with the ground path. So you always try to say correcting for the ground path is doing
You
it.
can't
But
correct.
you know that
No,
the pilots don't have to have a ground path. They could have an
no,
emergency
you can use
situation.
the stars, you can use a sextant, but you use radios. And radios
No, he doesn't care. He's
satellites.
just trying to clearing. He's got no
Okay,
destination.
look, if this doesn't click for you, I don't know what will. So down
No,
that.
wait. You're not going to frame it as if I don't understand something.
No,
You have no
I mean,
answer
I'm
to my
saying
scenario.
if you don't understand what I'm trying to say. So if we have a 200
No, I don't.
200 mile an hour crosswind that's going westward. So that's in addition to the Coriolis. We have a 1.5 or 2 mile an hour factor, but we have a 200 mile an hour factor on the way down. If we use that every hour, we'd be going thousands and thousands of miles higher tangential velocity. If we did that same direction, if we said, okay, let's take the pilot, take the stick, move it to the left, take off, duct tape it all in one split, and don't touch it, just to fight that 200, and it happens to be the perfect setting or course, we would end up hitting our target in whatever, South America.
No target. No target, Zanick. My scenario is there's no target, no course.
Okay. All right, then
He's got no ground path to follow. He's not correcting for anything.
Then we just, with respect to where we took off, we maybe we're only off the straight path of southwest. We're only off by maybe a few hundred miles either direction.
Well, you
But
can't be off. There's
now,
no ground path. There's no destination. You can't be
hold
off.
on, just a second. Now, if we now take off and we use, remember that same plane has been duct taped. It lands. It's a few hundred miles off wherever we were going exactly southwest. We take that plane, put it in a boat, take it back up to Alaska or Canada, wherever you took Vancouver. And we take off again. Hold on. But then we take off and say, wow, never seen before. The trade winds have totally stopped. The air is totally still. So where is that plane going to go? It's going to be taken off thousands of miles off. It'll be in Russia. It might even make it around the globe by the time you get, no, it wouldn't be that far. Maybe it'd be in Europe by the time it lands because you duct tape it all. So that just shows you that a crosswind or the Coriolis effect will be exactly the same effect on the control surfaces and the airplane itself flying through the medium of the air.
No, you would be able to see the ground moving. I mean, Zanick, first of all, are you a turtle? By the way, Zanick, are you a turtle?
Yeah, I'm a turtle.
You are?
What do you mean?
Supposed to say you got your sweet ass, I'm a turtle. I guess you're not a turtle. There's a certain answer you're supposed to have if you're really a turtle. I thought you guys were gaslighting me with the turtle talk last time we talked about this because Hugh Janus, or whatever his name is now, Red Cloud, was saying, well, yeah, you just go to the island and you see that, the island's moving, but you just treat it as stationary anyway. And you're like, yeah, that sounds good. That's perfect. If you guys were just laughing at yourselves, thinking you're gaslighting me or something, but you were just saying, yeah, it could be moving, but you just totally treat it as stationary. It doesn't matter. It was hilarious.
So slowly, it doesn't matter. It goes back to the aircraft carrier.
What do you mean
If it's
slowly?
left or right, all you care
about
about is getting on that deck of the aircraft carrier. And if it's moving, you are just flying the plane and matching the whatever speed. Hopefully, it's not jerking left and right by hundreds of feet. It's only moving left and right a few feet at a time, or maybe consistently 5 feet at a time, or 5 miles an hour, or even 10 miles an hour. You can easily handle that with the controls of the airplane and land the plane. But the Coriolis effect is
So now you're saying that the runway is moving eastward at a different rate than the plane. You have to adjust for a moving runway. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's basically like landing an aircraft.
Oh, really? Yeah. No. Well, that's not how pilots are trained. They're not ever trained to worry about a ground moving eastward at a different rate than his plane is.
No, it's almost analogous to the equivalence principle of Einstein. or relative motion. You can, if there's no difference between a crosswind or
No, there is.
the land
There's
was on
difference.
an island that was moving with powerboat motors pushing the island. The pilot is trained to land based on your attitude and your wings being level and your flight speed, so that you can.
Yeah, if you know better, don't say that. I'm disappointed in you that you're even saying that. You know that there's a westward wind that's moving him in the opposite direction, and he's also have to account for the moving ground. That'd be two different things, and he'd have to be trained to sync up with this moving runway at whatever angle that it happens to be, so he can land as if it's stationary. But he doesn't ever have to do that because he always just treats it as stationary, and then he deals with winds if there's winds. So if the winds were contradicting the rotation, that just debunks that whole idea.
No, that's not true. Not true. There's no. If I was a pilot, well, I am a pilot. I'm not anymore. But when I'm flying, if someone said, "Hey, we're going to land on this island that's moving 1 mile an hour to the east," would I think, "Oh shit, my training didn't incorporate landing on a moving island"? No. As long as it's not going up and down, and I know it's moving at some direction at a constant speed, I wouldn't even think twice about it. Even now that I haven't flown in years, I would have no problem. That would be the least of my worries of flying a plane.
Well, and if it was moving twice as fast as where you took off from, and you had no mechanism to keep your plane in sync with the new rotation speed, you'd have a problem.
No, because in order to get there, you'd have to scrub off or add.
There's no corrections, no path, no destination. This is just a joyriding pilot. There's no correcting for any path in my scenario.
Well, then you're going to be off course. You're going to end up. Hold on.
No course, no
you don't have to
destination.
continue to talk. I get the point. Let me respond quickly too. So let's say I'm coming northward, which is the opposite problem, and I don't have any aviation equipment whatsoever, and it's cloudy. I can't see the stars. I kind of point myself where I know I'm going. I have a compass though, and I try to keep it in one direction. But I end up, I'm up where I should be landing in New York, and I'm in the middle of the Atlantic. What do I have to do? I got to backtrack and fly.
Now you're acting like there's a destination.
I would be so perspective. Come on. So I'd be way off course. But along the way,
you always do this. You always start like rambling about some scenario that I'm not even talking about.
I'm saying if you went north and you didn't have all things like you said, no destination, you're just flying north, and hopefully you're going to get there. You're going to be off course to the east in the middle of the Atlantic.
There's no course. Don't even say off course. My scenario is he starts at a tangential velocity of 500 miles an hour. He's driving generally west-southwest. He doesn't care where he lands. There's no course. There's no destination, but he's going to be landing in a clearing that he finds when he gets there, somewhere around the equator, doesn't matter where, and he's always going to be able to treat it as stationary. What's the mechanism that makes his plane go twice as fast eastward directly so that he can treat it as stationary? He's not correcting for any course. There's no destination. Coriolis is lost in the wind, so it's not about Coriolis.
Well, now you're monologuing. You should stop.
No, I'm making sure you understand the scenario so that you don't
no destination.
Wiggle out of it like as if you had an answer anyway.
Stop. Jesus Christ. So you're going.
Yeah, you have to make it like me. I'm the problem interrupting, right? You always have to do this.
But you were doing it. You made your point. And I'm trying to respond.
Because you were interrupting me to act like I'm interrupting you.
Stop criticizing each other. Just let me speak. So you're going northwest rather than southwest. Same thing.
West south. No, why are you changing it? West southwest.
All right. Just say don't go. I'm very accommodating. So now we're going southwest, and we just start heading, and we don't care where we land. When we land, we're going to be somewhere in Japan. If we just think we took off southwest, and that's the direction we oriented the plane, we will be so far than we ever thought we possibly could be to the west. And when we land, and all we're going to do is like all the clouds will suddenly open up here. Whoa, we're over fucking China. We're over South Vietnam. All right, well, there's a landing field. Let's land there. Well, while you flew, you basically acquired this 1,000 or 500 miles an hour tangential velocity along the way. But you're not going faster than the ground because you're still.
How did you acquire it?
By going
south. How did you acquire it?
With relative to the ground, because you're now eastward as if you were going 500 miles. That's why it's a fictitious force. It really didn't push you. You're still flying. Hold on, let me finish the talk because I know where you're going with this. You're over Vietnam. You go, how did I get here? It's like the song, Talking Heads.
Doesn't matter.
Where's my beautiful wife? This isn't my beautiful car. How did I get here? You got there because now you traveled westward way farther than you ever thought possible. So it's really the fake tangential. God, you got to let me finish the sentence, please. You got there. You can't help yourself. You got there. You can't. You just can't stop. 3 times.
I'm telling you to go ahead. You're acting like it's a big deal. Go ahead.
I can't. All I can hear is you interrupting me. I can't hear.
Hey guys, maybe we should shift to something. This is pretty brutal for everyone to listen to.
Yeah, let's stop. We've already done enough of this.
I recommend you stop, Zanick. I'd recommend you stop.
You're not really having like a very productive.
No, I get a headache now too. Let's just stop. I agree.
No,
it was funny for a minute. I like the Talking Heads reference.
Maybe let someone else.
I never heard Zanick. Yeah, I never heard Zanick in your perspective debating Coriolis for an hour. Let this go on for another hour.
Yeah, it never happens, does it?
Anyway,
I don't get what's so hard about seeing the plane is moving through an atmosphere that's rotating with the Earth. So as it travels, it's very minuscule what it has to account for.
Well, yeah, but you have to actually have the mechanism that does it, and there has to be something that actually pushes the plane only eastward. And if you're imagining the atmosphere doing that, you got westward winds that are heavier one day compared to another day, and you have to imagine the atmosphere is overcompensating one day and compensating to make sure that the winds are pushing it in the opposite direction, which is the atmosphere, and the atmosphere is only said to be in sync with the Earth when there's no wind. So you have to imagine it's only when there's no wind that it's pushing the plane eastward, regardless of the pilot not knowing anything about it. And he's always going to be able to treat the Earth as stationary, even though it's moving twice as fast as where he took off from. And he's not making any corrections in my scenario because it's just a joyriding pilot's going to find a clearing, but the Earth is actually going to be literally in the globe model moving twice as fast, and there's no mechanism to make sure that he's in perfect sync. And there's no answer for that other than, it would be gradual, even though the pilot doesn't do anything and the plane's not made to go backwards if he's facing the opposite direction when he lands. So it debunks the globe.
Remember, it's in reference to the ground. So that's why when you end up in Vietnam or
reference to the moving ground,
in Southeast Asia, you've traveled. You're actually, the effect of you being there means you were going 500 miles an hour faster eastward than you normally took off with. So even though you did that, you're not doing it at the time you arrive. That's what you understand. It's incrementally. It's every.
Talk about me not understanding, and people want to talk about something else. Then don't start going on it. We're going to stop talking about this.
1.5 miles per hour per 1.5 miles per hour per minute. That's so you did take as if you were going 500 miles an hour faster to the west, but when you got there, you're only going 1.5 miles per hour per minute over the ground.
Yeah, there's no destination in the scenario. It wrecks the whole thing that you always try to do. Say, oh, he's correcting for this. No, there's no destination. You're going to fly there. You're going to go twice as fast eastward. No, you said 1.5 miles as if there's a correction being done. He's just letting the wind blow him wherever he wants, right? But he's going generally west-southwest.
Okay.
It doesn't work for you.
I agree. You're not going to a destination. You're just going south-southwest. And you would end up where you thought you might, if you could apply to where you thought you'd be. You're way farther west. The effect of you being farther west, this is the fictitious force part of it, it ends up in China. It ends up maybe in Mongolia or something.
Who cares?
Because you didn't correct for it. And now you just end up there. But when you get there, you're not suddenly going 500 miles an hour faster over the ground to the west. That's not how it works. Because the ground has been speeding up as you've been going down there. That's why you've been transpositioned from where you think you might have been to where you are.
Dude, it's just that way.
That part of it, which is really funny, actually.
No, it's not about you not grasping it. You're just saying a bunch of stuff. You're saying you can always treat it as stationary because it's moving. It's ridiculous. Your globe is debunked, Zanick. You know it. Come on.
Well, I'll just close by saying this. There's no difference between this crosswind scenario and the Coriolis scenario as far as the pilot's concerned. No difference whatsoever in any way, shape, or form.
Hidden in the winds. Hey, Zanick, same question for you real quick to wrap it up. What would be the difference in how you would train a pilot to fly over a stationary level Earth and how you would train a pilot to fly over a rotating oblate spheroid Earth with a tangential gradient?
No difference whatsoever.
There you go. So all of these things that you just said about correcting and 1.5 and all that makes no difference because it's just like it's stationary. Oh, maybe it's stationary because otherwise you'd have a tangential gradient to deal with, and there's no mechanism to make the plane move backwards in sync with the Earth, so we can always treat it as stationary, and that's why your globe's debunked.
The tangential gradient is no different as an effect on the aircraft as a very, very light crosswind.
That's not true. If you have 500 mile per hour difference, you'd actually have to have the wind or atmosphere be a mechanism that pushes the plane one direction, even if winds are pushing it the opposite direction at different speeds, different days. Doesn't work, Zanick.
Well, okay.
It's just a kinematic concept.
I think there's a misrepresentation between like the overall direction of the atmosphere with the Earth and wind. So like when the plane's already flying in that atmosphere, it does already have that overall direction to keep you with the speed of the Earth.
Well, that's the idea that they like to say, because it's generally thought to be moving eastward, even though winds go in the opposite direction, right? You have to have the mechanism that actually pushes the plane eastward, backwards. That is a force. So you have to act on the plane as a wind, even if it wasn't considered technically a wind, right?
I mean, I don't think your argument is in the arguments you're making. I think your argument should just stick to whether or not it's spinning.
Well, it's not spinning because the pilot treats it as stationary and never has to worry about putting his faith in the atmosphere, making his plane accelerate the right amount so that he could be in sync with the new tangential velocity, which is twice as fast as the conserved momentum he would have had when he took off. So there's no mechanism to make that happen, right? There would have to be something that the pilot would be aware of, and he would never put his faith in the air doing it. That's generally thought to be moving with Earth. It's not even good enough. They even try to claim the weather patterns are because the atmosphere is not in sync with the Earth, right? The differential between the atmosphere and the surface is what they try to claim the weather patterns are caused by. So even if it was the atmosphere doing it, it wouldn't even be good enough. And it's already not good enough because there's this estimation word of it's generally moving along the same speed, right? Generally, like if the pilot announced to the people in the plane, well, we're about at the same speed as the eastward tangential velocity. It's generally moving at the same speed. So we're going to estimate that we'll be almost in sync with the runway that could be moving perpendicular to the vector that we're landing at. You know, none of that happens. The only way you can treat it as perfectly stationary is if it's perfectly stationary relative to his movement.
Well, I mean, all that does happen with the systems in the plane.
No, there's no autopilot. You could have a guy in a Cessna.
There
There's
is
none of that. There's
autopilot.
no systems in the plane accounting for this. Yeah, what about
Okay,
before autopilot?
then there's a
What about a
pilot.
guy with just a little Cessna?
Then there's a
Yeah,
pilot.
what?
Yeah, he's controlling the plane.
Yeah, and he's got no destination, right? He's doing big loops all over the place. He's not correcting for any path. He's just going
Destination's
to land in the
irrelevant.
clearing. What?
Destination
Is
is
that?
irrelevant. I don't know why that's an
Well,
issue.
because a lot of times when I argue with people, they say, "Oh, he's correcting for his path," and if he was correcting for winds, it could be just like correcting for for tangential velocity difference. So we're just going to think of the plane moving at that exact speed, even if there's no destination or whatever else. We're just going to say it's somehow moving because the plane's doing it, or the pilot's correcting for something. What were you trying to say? The pilot's doing it. If there's no path, no corrections.
But you have to realize it's the
How would the
wind. It's
pilot
flying
be
in the wind.
accounting
It's
for
in
it?
the atmosphere. It's in the atmosphere while it's flying there. And it can have the 200-mile winds that are going east. But generally, the jet stream goes to the west, or excuse me, to the east, and that would actually counteract all, and by a fact, or another order of magnitude, the effects of Coriolis. If you had a 200-mile-an-hour eastward wind, like the direction that the jet stream usually goes, and you don't end up at this destination with this flying east. Like, let's say you came out of the clouds and suddenly the ground's going beneath you with this incredible eastward velocity. No, because you're flying in the atmosphere. You're flying in the atmosphere.
Yeah,
Whenever
but
the atmosphere is
which
doing,
is not considered to be in sync anyway. Not even fluid
right.
dynamics wouldn't allow it, and you try to claim that the weather patterns are because of the differential. So even if the atmosphere was moving the plane, regardless of the winds moving it in all the other directions, it's not good enough. It's not going to be good enough, even with the below Earth claims of the atmosphere not being in sync. So it's not good enough already, and it wouldn't work that way as well. The pilot would never put his faith in the atmosphere, moving his plane eastward so he can treat the Earth as stationary. It's ridiculous.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's too bad for your growth. People want to talk about other things.
Booked a flight today, Heathrow to JFK. Headed west-southwest, cause there ain't no better way. Gonna find that old Coriolis, they say she's hidden in the winds. But that just can't be if we rotate east, tangential gradient. Hidden in the winds, Coriolis must be hidden in the winds. But the Earth ain't moving faster with the further south we've been. And we never could land safely with that tangential gradient. And we all know every pilot treats the Earth as motionless. So to think it must be moving is just insane, you must confess. But please don't get offended if this song makes too much sense. Just thank God that landing's easy with no tangential gradient in the winds. They said she'd just be hidden in the winds. But the Earth ain't moving faster with the further south we've been. And we never could land safely with that tangential gradient. So here's a lesson for who's listening. It's dynamics that are true. No kinematic concept could ever substitute. So the next time you are flying, no matter where you go, don't worry about rotation, cause we ain't on no damn globe. So here's a lesson for who's listening. It's dynamics that are true. No kinematic concept could ever substitute. So the next time you are flying, no matter where you go, don't worry about rotation, cause we ain't on no damn globe. Hidden in the winds, Coriolis just ain't hidden in these winds. And the Earth ain't moving faster with the further south we go. So thank God we won't be crashing when those wheels hit down below. Hidden in the winds, there ain't no Coriolis hidden in the winds. And thank God it's stationary, or we never safely land on a surface that is moving with a tangential gradient. Yes, here's a lesson for who's listening. It's dynamics that are true. No kinematic concept could ever substitute. So the next time you are flying, no matter where you go, Don't worry about rotation, cause we ain't on no damn globe. Hidden in the winds, Coriolis just ain't hidden in these winds. And their earth ain't moving faster with the further south we've been. And thank God we won't be crashing when we touch down at the end. And thank the Lord, Earth is stationary, or we never safely land on a surface that is moving. There's no tangential.